Welcome to the Women Matter podcast with your host, Marline C. Duroseau. Join us as we delve into all things women, from the complexities of fertility to empowering discussions on femininity and confidence. Our segments shine a light on the journey of family building, offering awareness and support to those navigating this path. We're here to tackle impactful topics crucial to women's lives, empowering you to be unapologetically yourself while embracing your femininity. Tune in for insightful conversations and inspiration to live boldly in every aspect of your life. Because here on the Women Matter podcast, every woman's story matters. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Women Matter podcast. I am your host, Marline C. Duroseau. I have a little something special in store for everyone today as it relates to the podcast episode. We are going to be speaking about comparison. Yes, whether we'd like to admit it or not, oftentimes we tend to compare ourselves to everything and everyone else. And ultimately, comparison does nothing but steal the joy away from you. And we were born to be joyful, happy people amongst everything else. So with that, in order to maintain that sense of contentment, joy, and happiness, it is important that we don't go out of our way to compare ourselves to others. Now, I do know that that's easier said than done. Trust me, I've been there, as I'm sure many of you have as well. But as women living in this modern day age of so much social media influence. Everything is happening at almost a mile a minute. Everything is happening so fast. And we have to remember that all of this technology and, influence that we're taking in is really only a highlight of what the people that are putting it out wants you to see. But at the end of the day, we're still human. And it is human nature to try to compare yourself to what it is that you see or what it is that's going on. And it often allows you to take a step back and reflect, which ultimately there's nothing wrong with taking a step back to reflect if you are looking at what someone is doing and wondering, how they got there or what they were able to do to accomplish certain things. You also have to take all of these things with a grain of salt. Because my mom always tells me, and even until this day, since we were little kids, she always reminded us, you see what people have, but you have no idea what it took for them to get there. You had no idea what sacrifices they may have had to make, good or bad, to acquire the things that they have or be where it is that they want to be. So, boy, I know that sounded like a long-winded introduction, but comparison is something that just happened to come up, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it because I know so many of us women are dealing with that in one way or another. So I wanted to kind of break it down a little bit and just give us all a sense of encouragement and motivation to keep doing what it is that you're already doing and trying to accomplish your goals and not try to compare yourself to other people, right? And let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Oftentimes, when we're dealing with comparison, as women, we are inherently tasked with so many things, right, that are on our plates. This includes our responsibilities at work. If you're a mother, it also includes the responsibilities that you have to your children. If you are a wife, spouse, girlfriend, it also includes the responsibilities that you have to your partner. And oftentimes as women, we are also sisters, friends, daughters, aunties. It's just, the list can go on. So there's so many aspects of our lives that we're tasked with either having to keep it together or being the one that organizes it, being the one that holds other people accountable. And I have to tell you, it can get really, really tough. And when you're dealing with so much, and you see the outside influence of other people, whether it's through their social media posts or how they carry themselves, how they show up in the world, the credentials that they have. When you see all of that outside influence, you can't help but compare yourself to what it is that you're seeing. So let's kind of jump right into it. I know we kind of did already, but let's, dissect comparison a little bit. Some of the areas, like I mentioned, that women normally compare themselves in is maybe the way they parent. You might have where some women with children may compare themselves or even their own children to what they see the children of other classmate moms or other children in their family or other children that just, are in their circle, and they compare themselves as a parent to see, how is it that, Sam's child is able to do certain things, but I'm unable to get my children to do certain things. And to add some context to it and add an example, I'm going to do that with myself. So my children were born in the year 2012. And I have to tell you that in 2012, it seemed as though almost everyone around me were giving birth or had given birth to their children. I had family members, meaning, my brothers, partners. I also had friends. A lot of us that went to high school and college together had children or were pregnant around the same time. And although I was always tasked with, and also I enjoyed it, taking care of my younger cousins, other children around the neighborhood, until you become a parent yourself, there's just a different level of responsibility or a different outlook that you have when now you're responsible for taking care of your own little people that you don't get to send away. They're with you all the time. And even if you get what they would like to call a break, your children end up coming back with you, right? Which is ultimately the case. So I say that to say I was not the first person to be in the position of being a new mom. And for sure, I won't be the last person that found themselves in the position of being a new mother, a new parent. And I often found myself comparing my mothering tactics or my daily routine to what I saw my friends and family members, how they handled their mothering tactics or daily routine. And I have to tell you that in doing so, I was able to pick up on some tips and tricks that helped me along the way as it related to caring for my children. I'll give you an example. One of my sister-in-laws, became a mother around that same time, and she was also an aunt like me, tasked with helping care for and raise, which we love, our nieces and nephews. So when she ended up having, my niece, and I ended up having my children, when I tell you, she to me seemed like she just had it under control. The children were in bed, and I say children because I'm cultivating over the past couple years after she had already had more children. And the children were in bed by 7 p.m. The latest was 7:30. And for me, I got no sleep at night. I don't understand. And although I tried to say, well, maybe it's because I have twins, and it's two versus one, I was just like, I don't understand how she's doing it. Why is it that I can't do it that way? So in that particular respect, I used the tool of comparison or how I was feeling, wondering how she did it, not to bring myself down, but to see if I can tap into her brain and have her help me figure out what it is that I can alter and what it is that I can do differently to maybe accomplish that goal of getting a routine in place. And it's not even about having the children go to sleep at a certain time. It wasn't even about that. It was more, I had no routine. It wasn't working. I was at the beck and call of the children. Whatever they had going on basically trickled down to me, and that's it. So I have to tell you that, that was very, very tough for me because as a new mom, you're also tasked with not getting enough sleep. And when you have no sense of routine because you're at the mercy of what the children are doing, you often feel, you know, hopeless, and you wonder when and if it'll ever change. And it also causes you to feel down, right? But instead of using that comparison to stay where I was, I called up my sister-in-law. I called up some of my other friends who were kind of in the same boat. You had me, who had no routine whatsoever. My sister-in-law seemingly had it all under control. And then you have the rest of our family and friends in the middle who were, you know, somewhere in the middle with trying to adopt some sort of routine with the children. So one of the things that I found out is, you know, each child is different. And the way that you run your household sometimes may be impacted by the type of child that you have. You know, let's be honest, some children are, you know, a little bit more easygoing, a little bit more laid back. Some children are a little bit more hands-on, and just every child is different. So that also, she reminded me, take into account, Marlene, you have twin babies that were in a NICU, and they were there for almost 4 months, and they're already used to a different routine compared to my children came home on time. You know, they were with me from the beginning. So it almost started from the inception of bringing them home with me getting this routine going. So I said, oh, okay, all right, that helped me feel a little bit better. The next thing she also mentioned is, yes, you see that I'm telling you, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do, you know, homework or something, or read a book between 8 and 9, because that's my private time. And of course, I'm there like, homework, read a book. Like, I can't do that. I'm barely being able to get some sleep. So I'm comparing the fact that she's able to get some downtime, but I wasn't. So the way she addressed that was, no, no, no. What you see is that I have it under control now, right? But it takes time. This was a buildup between hours, days, weeks, and months to finally get to that point. And oftentimes in life, which is why it's also important not to compare, because what we often see that we make ourselves feel bad about is the end result that somebody else was able to accomplish. You don't see all of the buildup and the foundational steps that they had to take to get to that particular point. So that was my second, you know, aha, okay, all right, I'm you know, a little bit better about myself. So one of the other things that ended up happening is, you know, she explained to me, even though you earn or yearn to have this routine, you have to allow for setbacks. You have to allow for, sometimes things just won't pan out the way you planned them. And again, because you see or hear about the consistency and the stability of what I have going on, it's not always like that, right? So when it came to parenting, that really helped me a lot. So it allowed me to get a better understanding and take a look into the type of children that I had. They were premature babies. They just were totally different than children who were born on time. And in addition to that, I had two at one time versus just one. So not to say that it's necessarily harder, but it's a little bit more tricky to navigate. So I had to give myself some grace when it came to that. And in addition to that, I had to remember everything takes time. You know, everything takes time. So what was it that I was rushing for? So I had to take a step back and think about that one, because at that particular moment, what I was rushing and stressing out for was I needed to get some sleep. Like, I was tired, right? And we all know that scientifically, you know, medically, being sleep deprived is just not good for your body. You know, it really can take a toll on your body. So as I kind of took a step back, allowed myself some grace, figure out based on how my children were, you know, how it is that they interacted with me, the timing that I took them baths, right? So I started to put a schedule together and try to see if I can, you know, institute some sort of pattern or routine towards the end of the night. And the other thing that was important too was I had to make sure that everyone else in the household who were helping me with the children were also on board, because establishing a routine involves everybody. You can't do it yourself. So that also allowed me to take a step back and understand and appreciate that it's okay for me to ask help from the people around me to be able to start and build up this routine when it came to getting everything under control with the children. So that's one way, a real life example, hopefully that helped as it came to comparison, because in the meantime, if I'm dwelling on the fact that, these women are able to do this and I'm not, I'm still gonna be down about it. I'm not thinking outside the box, on how different ways that I can, combat it or circumvent it. And, I'm not allowing myself the grace I need to grow in figuring it out. So being able to do so was really, really important to me. And that is what helped me start to pivot and turn a corner as it relates to, to me feeling like I was being an okay mom, because and especially in the beginning stage, you feel like you're failing and it's like, this just can't be normal. So that's one example where comparison, really stands to take your joy away and you miss out on so much because you're trying to be like someone else or do things how someone else does it, or wondering why you can't. So another example that when it comes to comparison is, women at work. Oftentimes at work, we wonder, not necessarily me to a certain extent, but oftentimes at work, you wonder, how is, this person able to do things in a certain way, right? How is it that they're able to meet their deadlines and get those, promotions and excel in what you feel is such an easy way. And, it's important not to do that because, again, you don't know the person's background, because oftentimes when you show up to a place of work, you may find someone that's already been working there before you, so you don't really know their history. Or even if it's someone that you feel came in after you still don't really know the full gamut of the experience and the background that they come with. That's one thing. The other thing too is it's hard to compare yourself in a workplace setting because, let's be honest, oftentimes relationships matter, and people may have built-in relationships that, whether we think it's favorable or not, it can help with them getting to where they need to be. Now, that's not always to say that people only receive promotions or raises because they know someone. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you sometimes have to take a step back and say, okay, is there some sort of other type of historical relationship that exists, which makes that person feel more comfortable with asking for what they want or being visible, right? And one of the other things at work that I feel that comparison doesn't help with is, listen, you can't compare yourself to what other people have, but one of the biggest things is these folks will stand up and ask. They will stand up and say what it is that they want. They will let management or their supervisors know what their expectations are in the role or in the organization with the company. So if you're sitting back wondering why these people are getting promoted, these people are being asked to take on additional tasks, which can help prove that they can handle more, which will then possibly lead to more money, and you're not doing it, well, are you asking? Are you putting yourself out there? Are you making yourself known to the decision makers? And are you, tagging along with the right people? Sometimes too, you tend to compare yourself to others, and maybe the people around you aren't as good of an influence, and maybe they're holding you back from taking that next step or taking that extra leap. So you find yourself in this rut of just wondering and wishing and trying to figure out what's happening, what they're doing that you're not. But it's very important to take a step back and look into the situation as an outsider and say, okay, what can I do to improve my situation here at work? So oftentimes in comparison, we're wishing for someone else, some kind of external person or external thing, third party, to make what it is that we want happen, right? And that's why you're comparing. Oh, okay, well, maybe if I knew, you know, the president or something, that would happen for me. Or why can't my boss just see that I come in early every day and I leave, later? There's no communication. You can't assume that people are just going to see this, right? You have to make yourself known and, speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself as it relates to getting what it is that you want, instead of comparing and thinking that you're either doing a bad job, because that's what comparison does. It makes you so down on yourself, unfortunately, right? One of the things that comparison does, like I just said, it makes you second guess your decisions. It makes you second guess where you are. It makes you second guess if you should even go for it. And you just have to kind of put that to the side and just go for it. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. That's another thing that my mom always tells us, even till now, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So it's very, very important to put yourself out there in a workplace setting so that not only you feel like you're advocating for yourself, you put yourself in a position to be seen, to be recognized, to be called upon so that you can grow within the organization, should that be the goal that you want to accomplish. Okay. So that's my second example. The first example, I gave an example of comparison when it came to mothering, for instance. The next one I talked about was in the workplace setting. The next example for comparison that I'd like to talk about is, when it comes to relationships, maybe a husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner relationship. It's often very, very tricky when it comes to that, because us women tends to stay back and say, well, why is it that, my friend has been married, for so long, and that's not the case for me. So that's a big one, because oftentimes in friend groups, we often try to cultivate relationships around people or persons that are similar to us. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes if you're married, you have a married group of friends. Oftentimes if you're single, you have a single group of friends. That's just, sometimes how naturally, things work out. However, that's not always the case. You may have where you're, single and a lot of your friends are married, which at that point, it's not good to compare yourself to say, okay, well, why am I not married yet? And that's a good question to ask. But in doing that, you also take a look within to make sure that you are ready for this new type of relationship, because what you may see in these married couples, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, is all the glitz and glam when they post on social media, right? You're seeing the anniversary trips, or you're seeing that they're partying together. You're seeing birthday present reveals, things of that nature. So you're wondering, man, how, when can I get that? Or you might see where you're already in a committed relationship, but you don't have that same type of interaction with your partner. So now you're comparing your relationship to what it is that you're seeing, whichever way it goes. So that's another instance where it's important not to do so, because again, you're an individual, your partner is an individual, right? So it's two individual people coming together to form this type of relationship. So in that essence, oftentimes in relationships, there will be where you have to compromise. There will be disagreements. There will be different values in a relationship that one partner may see as more important than the other partner. But that's where the compromise and the understanding and communication comes into play. And oftentimes too, it's hard because you may have someone who wants to say, okay, well, how do you get your spouse to do XYZ for you? Because I would just love if, my spouse did that or something like that. So again, that's where that comparison comes into play. But then because they do that, the person who you're seeing having all of this beautiful, things done and happen for them, you don't know also what it is that they're doing and they're pouring into and they're willing to sacrifice for their partner. And I don't mean sacrifice in a negative way when it comes to relationships, but again, relationships are give and take. Are you the partner that feels like you always have to be right? Are you the partner that feels like, you're always never speaking up and just letting your partner always be right? So then you have this internal sense of emptiness because you don't feel like you're heard or you don't feel like you belong. All of these are just fundamental dynamics that can go into play and should be taken into account when it comes to comparison as it relates to viewing other people's relationships. And the same thing can be said for just regular friendships, relationships, and comparing, how the dynamics are. Well, one friend speaks more to the other friend, why, and, why can't they do that with me, or why can't I do that with them? So it's really, really important to take a step back and not let comparison dictate what it is that you ultimately want, or how it is that you go about what it is that you want. So relationships are complicated, period. So it's really important to always take what you see with a grain of salt, because you just never really know, what's happening. And I can go on and on and on about that, but it's one of those things that can indeed be a little tricky, and it will play on your psyche and allow you to feel bad, or even get into a state of depression, which we don't want. I don't like that D word, because you're trying to compare yourself or your relationship to others. So the key when it comes to that is having a clear and upfront conversation with the other party in your relationship, to talk about what it is that you're feeling, talk about why it is you feel that you feel, ask for a check-in. Hey, I'd like to see this and that happen. Is that something we can work on? Or, why is it that we don't do this, or why don't we pursue something else? That's, you never know. It's not until you ask those questions that you realize, you don't even know what the person was thinking, because they probably didn't know that that mattered to you. Right? So here you are feeling either resentful or feeling down because you're comparing yourself and your relationship to what you see, when all along it probably could have been resolved a long time ago with a simple conversation, an open conversation. So I know that was a lot. So it was just really important to me to talk about comparison. And I can probably come back and do different videos more in depth as it relates to segmented comparison. And another reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I host an annual vision event for my Women Matter platform. And when we do the follow up and touching base calls or webinars as it relates to the vision event. The vision event is normally in person live, and a in-person event, and we do like quarterly follow-ups to see where everybody is. I was getting a sense of feedback of women who were feeling that they failed because whatever goal it was that they set out to accomplish for that year, in their brain, it's been 3 months or 4 months, and this person was able to do it, but that person, maybe got even further than that person. So it makes them compare to themselves. Maybe they're at a point where they feel they're stagnant or they're not progressing. So everyone started to compare, and we're exchanging different dialogue as it relates to that. And I said, I have to really talk about that. And one of the things I did to help motivate the women on the follow-up webinar is to remind them that your journey in life is your own, and everything in life is funny in the sense that you'll plan certain things to go a certain way, but life happens and it doesn't. And oftentimes it's through no fault of your own. So it's okay to give yourself a little grace, acknowledge where you are, reflect on what happened and maybe what you could have done to change it, or what you can do based on the past to make it better going forward. Maybe take a different approach. But you have to do that in a sense where you're not coming down hard on yourself because you're seeing what somebody else did or what they were able to accomplish. So the women did give me feedback that they left feeling a little bit better and more rejuvenated and more on target as it relates to what it is that they are going to be able to accomplish, and came up with different ways that they're going to be able to do it as specified for them. Because again, everybody has lives, things are different in everyone's lives, and oftentimes you can't predict how life will happen for you. So much can happen in 3 to 4 months. So something else may become a priority, right? Something else may have opened up, which you thought you would be further along in 6 months, but you were able to do it in 3 months because something else came up. Sometimes it works the opposite way. So it's very, very important to remind women that it's okay to not compare yourself to anybody, anything, any situation, because we are all born unique. We are all born with our own sense of intuition, our own inherent power. We all have our own set of gifts. So it's very, very important to tap into that and just remind yourself you matter. What you want to do matters. And if you are going to compare, use it as a way to propel yourself, not to bring yourself down, right? And just always take into account people only show you what they want you to see. You have no idea oftentimes what it is that's really going on in the background. So don't be down on yourself because you're in this comparison mode for others. And oftentimes it doesn't work like that. It's not going to be good for you. And when you're in a mode of comparison and not propelling or moving forward, then when you look back 6 months from now, you'll see that you're in the same spot. And that'll make you feel bad because now you're going to reflect on the fact that you spent all this time worried about what other people are doing and how other people are doing it. And it's like, no, I'm Marlene, I'm Sam, I'm Jackie, I'm whoever, and I'm going to do the best I can with what I have on this given day. And that's is what's important, you know? And sometimes you never know. You're trying to compare yourself to be like other people, and unbeknownst to you, other people are comparing themselves to you. So you may be an inspiration and not even know it, and you're here feeling bad and not, uplifting yourself. So I know that was a lot, but it's very, very important for us to remind ourselves that comparison is the thief of joy. We are to be a happy people, a joyful people, a set of people filled with love. And when you start to not progress in life because you're worried about being compared to everyone else, it just takes away from you. You focusing on that doesn't take away from anyone else except yourself. So you have to love yourself. I love all things women. I want to empower all things women. We're inherently filled with grace, power, intuition, and love. And it's important that we project that each day that we're out in this world, that we get a chance to wake up, and do it one day at a time. That's all you can do. As cliche as it sounds, that's all you can do. So that is it for this episode of the Women Matter podcast, where we talked about comparison and why it's important to not be down on yourself and not use comparison as a way to further dig yourself into a hole. If you are going to pick to compare, it's important to use it to, keep you on a forward projection and accomplishing the goals that you want in your life. So stay tuned for more episodes to come. And for everyone, if you would like to hear more or find out a little bit more about comparison or the other topics that I talk about, definitely visit my website, www.mcdbe.com. I have been your host, Marlene Duroseau. Until next time.